Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast. It's time to get you ready for the weekend. I am Gamby with my co-host Brandon. It's a little late for him, so he may be a little bit tired. Forgive him if he gets grumpy and gives you some bad takes. It's not his fault. It's just the hour of day.
Sleepy.
That's all it is. He's very sleepy. So let's just jump into the episode here, and let's start first with 10 takes as always. My first one is about Winnipeg, and it's kind of interesting. They're doing okay, right? On paper, it seems like they're doing okay. There's been goals and everything, but they have crumbled in every way possible from a statistics perspective recently. They have the worst expected goal share by a wide margin, and they have the lowest expected goals per 60, so how many goals they are expected to score per 60, yet they have the highest expected goals against per 60 in the league. So they're playing a very, very dangerous game right now.
Neil Pionk,
top power play. Yes, that's what happened when you put Neil Pionk up there. Yeah.
I think I like that much.
Yeah.
It's been working out for me. All right, my first take is the Metro. Now, I don't know. Maybe this is because I'm mostly paying attention to teams in the Metro when I'm, not doing fantasy stuff. I'm looking at Islanders. I'm looking at the tri-state area. I'm looking at, rival teams and stuff. So my focus when it's not fantasy is on typically the Metro area. And the Metro always seems to be a pretty tough division every single season. It's been like that for a while now, but this season it's just insane. There's 7 teams that are above a 500 from a point perspective anyway. Like, not if you don't, if you're saying an overtime loss is a loss, then no. But as far as points are concerned, there are 7 of the 8 teams are above a 500 ratio. The only one that isn't is the Devils, and they're really actually not that far off. But what's even crazier is that 6 of those teams are within 1 win of a playoff spot. So 6 teams from the Metro are a win away from being wildcard 2 at least, which is just crazy. It's to say it's anybody's game to make the playoffs in the Metro is a bit of an understatement, but it goes to show how difficult it is to get anywhere in that division, because you're not going to be able to jump, from out of the playoffs into third in the division like you can in the Atlantic, or you can in the I think you can in the Atlantic right now, or you can in the the Pacific,
Western Conference, pretty much.
Yeah, either one, maybe not. Maybe not.
Can
either
you
one,
tell
but
Brandon is tired?
it might be the Pacific. I can't remember, but it's really crazy how close everything is over there. And the only teams that are really in there are happily the Islanders and the Caps for the most part. I guess the Penguins have been pretty unstoppable lately too. One other tiny aside that I noticed. So I wrote this little bit of the script yesterday. This is being recorded on Thursday night. I wrote this Wednesday night, but what has happened since then is I can't remember. One of the beat writers posted the intra-division records for each team, and the Hurricanes are 4-8-1 in the Metro, which is crazy because they're on paper they're probably the best team in the league from an advanced stats perspective.
Bodes well for the playoffs.
Yeah, right.
I'd be a little afraid if I were a Hurricanes fan there. And I'm glad, as a Rangers fan, all that makes me think of is not, oh my gosh, we're so close to the playoffs. All I keep thinking is we are going to screw this up, get the last spot out of the playoffs, and we're screwed from a pick perspective. That's what I keep thinking. Just that, have you ever seen the ineffective math or hockey viz sadness graph? The Rangers are up there. They have a 66% chance of sadness. The fun one is the San Jose Sharks have a 97% chance of sadness right now, which means getting into the playoffs, not having, a good pick, or not getting into the playoffs, but having a bad pick. So that's where we sit. The Rangers are a lot of sadness, but we have Shesterkin, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So my third point here, it wouldn't be 10 takes if you didn't talk about the Leafs.
Yeah. What else are we doing here?
I know, right? I mean, if you're not talking about the Leafs, are you actually talking about hockey at all? I was wrong on Matthews. I'll own it, especially after the coaching change. I mean, the dude is just unbelievable. Part of me wants to say, I guess at the time I didn't give him enough credit given the system that was around him. I looked at it straight from a numbers perspective and said, and I had watched him too, obviously, but mostly looked at it and said, well, there's just not a lot of areas that he can get better with this deployment right now. But you know what? I don't think I gave him enough credit that he could break out of that deployment, or that they could change the deployment entirely around him. But I gotta say, I had said before I didn't think he was a first round pick. Yeah, that's looking pretty foolish right now, I'll admit.
So the Leafs are interesting in that I think it's fairly widely known. I'm sure every Leaf is going to just roll their eyes because they've heard this and know this from a fan perspective forever. But there is something to be said about the fact that because the Leafs never get penalty calls, Leafs players are always going to have a little bit of a disadvantage. Even if they're a 100-point player, they're not going to get a ton on the power play, which makes guys like, Malkin and Crosby and even guys on the Jets, Scheifele and Wheeler, maybe not first round picks. I'm not necessarily comparing them apples to apples here, but I'm kind of saying that like power play points are one of the hardest things to pick up. And that's one of the things that's going to, even if I expect from a points perspective, somebody from the Leafs to be a first round pick, because I don't expect them to get a ton of power play points, it's always going to make me be like, what about Pasternak, right? Like, what about somebody else? What about Marchand? Or any? It's yeah. That's the one thing that I feel like is going to be really hard a hard hurdle to get over for Leafs players to move up the ranks in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, can you imagine if they actually got the calls they should? How good Matthews, Marner, Tavares, like all that whole top power play would be for fantasy. It's not that they're not good already, but how good they could
there's more
get.
opportunities, right? It's the Vancouver effect.
Yep,
you got a
exactly.
good power play, but you're not getting enough time to use it. Vancouver has a good power play, and they are getting enough time to use it, and you're seeing a lot of breakout candidates out there as a result.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ilya Kovalchuk.
Yeah, he's okay.
How about that? He plays hockey kind of, but okay. So again, written on Wednesday. It is now Thursday. Gallagher is back. Actually, did he play tonight? I noticed that he was planning to play tonight, but I had to go out and I didn't notice if he actually did play. I believe he did. I'm going to take a quick look. I'm going to cheat and stall while I Google whether or not he actually was in the game tonight. He was. Yeah. Okay. So that did affect, to an extent, the deployment of Kovalchuk, but really not that much. We still saw a pretty good amount of power play time. They kind of do there's not a strict power play one in Montreal, but Kovalchuk gets as much time as anybody else does. He's playing more minutes than he was seeing in LA by a significant margin, playing somewhere between 18 and 20 minutes a game, including tonight. Again, tonight being Thursday night, where he played 18 and a half. There's a decent amount to be excited here about. This isn't going to say that there's no real way to predict that he's going to be, a star for the rest of the season. I don't necessarily expect that, but I do think he's worth taking a flyer on. If you got a streamer spot, just kind of plug it for a week or two, see what he's got. And if he doesn't have anything after a week, then whatever. He came out fairly strong in his first couple games. He didn't do much on Thursday night, but he's still point per game since joining Montreal. You can't really ask for much more of the guy. And he's putting up nice hits and decent shots, which is nice and helpful.
Yeah, it'll all come down to deployment and what happens when guys come back. You have Armia still out. You have not Domi. God, I always forget who that other guy is on the Montreal Canadiens. It's always injured. He's good.
I feel like Armia is kind of the biggest factor because we don't know where he's going to slot in when he comes back. I actually think that there's a pretty decent chance that they keep Armia up or down in bottom six and play him third line at power play something, But there's a lot of guys that can come back at some point. There's Drouin. There's
Drouin.
Byron.
That's what I was thinking about. There you
Byron,
go.
I expect to be bottom six. Drouin, you'd expect to slot in somewhere in the top six, but the question is, does Suzuki, who was originally kind of bumped out and was like shifting around a bit, is he the one that gets bumped, or is it Kovalchuk? If when Armia comes back, does he bump Suzuki? Does he bump Kovalchuk? Does he not bump anybody? Paling probably gets sent down. There's a lot of possibilities in what can happen as these guys get healthy, but a short-term to possibly long-term ad for Kovalchuk seems pretty worth it.
Yeah, we did a hot hands on him, and that was kind of my take too. A lot of it is dependent on deployment, and that matters quite a bit. So you got to pay attention to what happens with injuries here. My guess is that he's going to be kind of a short-term thing right now, and he'll eventually be third or fourth line at some point. But you got to
Probably,
give,
yeah.
even if that happens, you got to give credit to Mark Bergevin, because this roster is crazy deep right now. It feels like
Yeah.
they've been riddled with injuries, but you have Chirot who's playing well, you have Petrie who's playing well, you have Weber who's playing well. On offense, you've got guys like Deneau stepping up, Tatar, Suzuki, even Poling is fitting into his role right now.
Failing.
Like everyone is just doing really well, so there's a lot of depth. That actually makes it kind of scary.
Yeah. It's such a low risk move. You get him at league min. It's a 2-way contract, but I can't imagine him reporting to the AHL if he's demoted. But yeah, why not?
Why not take it? Yeah, and he's hitting.
I mean, I can't imagine anybody on any team. Well, yeah, I can. I feel like people will just get mad no matter what. Any fan, if you take, and I saw this reaction from some Habs fans when Kovalchuk was brought in, like, oh, he's taking time from Wheel, he's taking time from Paling, he's taking time from whoever. But fact of the matter is, Kovalchuk is a veteran presence in the locker room. No, I mean he has value, and he can be a little bit of an injection of. I mean, he's a big dude. He's 225, 6'3", not something that the Canadians have in spades, really. So there's that too.
Oh God, it's Paling, isn't it? I said Poling.
I said Paling a couple times to you. I corrected myself, then I corrected you. So we're good.
Yep, you did that on purpose. You threw me to the wolves. To the wolves. Okay,
I tried.
So Paling. I'll have to remember that.
Paling.
Okay, my next point here is on the San Jose Sharks. Jones is done. You can drop Jones. Jones. I was mixing Dell and Jones. I was thinking about both of them. Aaron Dell seems to have taken over the net at this point. I don't think they're really necessarily married to Martin Jones, and he just has been awful in every way. There might be some kind of, I don't know. Just Jones is done. I don't really think he's worth owning in virtually any league, not even volume ones. Yeah. And
yeah,
Dell's he's worth a gamble. Like, if you need a third goalie, I don't actually hate grabbing Dell right now. I don't hate it. Would you rather have Shesterkin or Dell?
Neither.
Okay.
I think that they would sell Jones and Aaron Dell for a firm handshake and a nod.
I mean, if they were getting a goaltender back, sure.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. I guess at the end of the day, my point is just Jones is done. You can safely drop him if you've been holding out. There's not much to hold out for. And then Dell, I guess, is a fine gamble, but not my favorite. But at the same time,
I'd rather gamble on Allmark, even though he got shelled tonight. I don't know. It's all sadness out there in the goalie world, as it always is.
The goalie world is weird. Carey Price getting lit up.
I'm just happy that Vasilevsky seems to be back. My Vasilevsky Varlamov stack is finally looking as good as I thought it looked at the beginning of the season.
You definitely just jinxed that.
You know what? I'm okay with it. Because every time I draft a goalie tandem I'm happy with, it never even begins to pan out. So this is as far as I've ever gotten with two goalies that are actually playing well in the entire time I've ever played fantasy hockey.
I'm proud of you. You've come a long way when it comes to goaltenders.
Feels good. Okay. My next point in the sixth take of the episode here is Laviolette is out and we've got Hines in. It looks like, so that, again, we're recording this Thursday night. Currently, this game is still in progress. The Predators are up 3-2 against Chicago. That game will probably end by the time we are done with this episode. Oh, it's good to see that LA is also up 4-0, and I played Malcolm Subban in a DFS game. So, but anyway,
well,
I know it was still off to a rocky start with Hines in. It's not like it immediately solved. We didn't see that coaching change boost that you sometimes see in teams so far. I still am tentatively optimistic on basically everybody on the Predators except for Duchesne, because I don't know. I feel like I'd have a vendetta against Duchesne because he's been hyped for so long and has never really quite gotten to where it was expected, other than he had a good season in Ottawa for a while. But I'm cautiously optimistic on Victor Arvidsson, on Kalle Yarncroke, on Philip Forsberg. Not so much the defense, because how much better can Yossi really be? And then, Ekholm and Ellis have been pretty good in their own rights as well. But for the forwards, I'm hoping that maybe we see, especially, I think Arvidsson, is the one that I'm hoping to see the most out of, because he's been subpar, to say the least, this season. Although I do kind of think it might be a lingering injury that he's not talking about.
Well, my feelings on Arvidsson.
They're stupid, and I won't hear them.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I'm moving on to my next one. I have another goaltender bit here, and that's on Talbot. Oh my! Why do I keep doing this? I keep mixing names.
I thought I was a tired one.
Man, Talbot. That's a new one too. Talbot and Riddick seem to be moving into like a 1A, 1B situation. This is totally like a league thing. I feel like this is a thing now, that teams are just starting to use 1A, 1Bs more and more. So it seems like
I think that we're going to see a lot of that coming up.
Yeah, so they're starting to share the net. They both honestly have been playing kind of well. I would still wait to pick up Talbot. I think if this actually does happen, I've definitely soured a little bit more on Riddick rest of season. But the Flames have been playing far, far better as of late. So in a very deep league where goaltenders are worth it, maybe Talbot is someone you at least put on a watch list. But for now, I think Talbot is towards the bottom of guys that I want to pay attention to.
Yeah, I agree. I still think Talbot kind of not very good. I don't really think he's very good. Yeah. Okay, my eighth take, also about goalies, because this is the goalie episode apparently. I feel like there's a lot of overreaction to rookie goaltenders, and I want to kind of advise caution. There's not, especially on guys like Shesterkin. By the way, I've read that it's supposed to be spelled Shestyorkin officially.
I hate it.
You know what? That was the first way I saw it spelled, and I'm fine with it. But apparently, the way that we're seeing it, on Yahoo and whatnot, is Shesterkin, like the Erkin version, is essentially a translated mispronunciation. Which I don't even want to assume. Like, I don't even want to think about what that entitles or means for the actual pronunciation of his name. But yeah. Anyway, the total aside. But I mean, he's kind of relevant in this conversation in that there seems to be a lot of hype around him. I don't understand why any goaltender on a bad team, and let's be honest, the Rangers are bad. I get that, Shesterkin's come up with a couple of wins already. But I mean, not against the strongest of teams. I guess Colorado, but they were tired. So I am not super hyped on him just yet. I would like it if the Rangers were good. I'm thinking I can't help but draw parallels to the Sorokin situation most likely happening next season with the Islanders. Sorokin and Shesterkin are, both sound similar, are both Russian, and are playing on competing teams, which is hilarious. And both very, very hyped outside the NHL goalies up till this moment. But at least the Islanders have a proven system and a proven defense. The Rangers don't. So I'm just concerned and confused why so much hype is being put on an unproven NHL goalie on a bad team.
Excuse me. They are definitely league proven. They are league proven worst defense. They are proven. Indeed, there's something there consistent.
I can understand it for Samsonov, but because especially in keeper leagues, right? Because the odds of Holtby being re-signed at this point are seeming lower and lower with the strength of his play. But I don't, even in a keeper league, are you keeping Shesterkin? Like, are you just looking for the long haul with him?
Unless
it would have to be a very
really
deep league for me. It would have to be like a keep 10 at least for me to be even thinking about it.
It'd have to be keep 10. You'd have to include saves. It'd have to be a pretty goalie heavy league where other people keep goalies. And other than that, it's not. Let's move into my next point here, which was actually about that. I piggybacked on this a little bit and wanted to talk about the actual kind of what to expect with Georgiev going forward, right? Because I think that's a lot of what's been talked about. Is on top of that, you don't only have right now that you're
What to expect
gambling.
about Georgiev? He's going to be
Yeah,
a shark sooner or later, you'd think.
I mean, sure, but you see, I think what happened was they brought up Shesterkin, at least from what I've read in the reports, is that they brought up Shesterkin more as a trial run here. Is let's
Yeah.
see if he's ready, can handle the NHL. While we protect Georgiev on one hand, and at the same time, also with Georgiev, get him some rest. And we just see what we have in Shesterkin, pretty much, is what the Rangers are doing here. So I wouldn't be surprised if a few things happen here. I think one is we could see Georgiev dealt sooner if Georgiev continues, or Shesterkin continues to play well. So that could happen. The other thing that is very likely that I've seen is that Shesterkin could get sent down soon here,
I
actually.
bet that, actually.
Yeah, so he gets sent down. Georgiev gets some rest. He plays more. They raise his trade value, and then they trade him closer to the deadline. And the Rangers just know, okay, we've got a guy.
Makes way too much sense.
Cool. Yep.
Way too much sense.
Yeah, so I think that's what's going to happen here. I think Shesterkin gets a few more starts. Although, if he continues to win, he does make it a lot more difficult. But nonetheless,
I mean, I don't want to say he's like a terrible goalie. I'm just saying that, he played well tonight against the Devils, but it's a daunting task to be playing behind that team right now.
Yeah, and look, he is good. He's incredible, and he is the future for the Rangers. But I don't think you can draw parallels. I think the thing that I've seen that's most dangerous with Shesterkin, and I get the hype that's around him, right? And we did this same. We went over this with Samsonov. The same exact thing happened. And at the end of the day, the thing that I think is the most wrong is I've seen a lot of parallels drawn between Binnington and Shesterkin. And I just don't see that happening. I don't see. I can't wait to be wrong a second year in a row, but I cannot see Shesterkin being last year's Binnington. And you also need to remember that what St. Louis did last year was unprecedented. That is not like a normal thing. And, I would actually argue that what St. Louis did last year is maybe a bad thing for the league. Because now you're going to have a bunch of GMs out there or a bunch of owners saying, oh, well, the Blues did it. Why can't we do it? Why can't we win from the bottom? And not realizing that that's insanely hard and insanely rare. So yeah, I get Shesterkin's being picked up like crazy. And don't forget, Hank is there too. What are you gonna do? Just sit Hank forever? No, at best Shesterkin stays up and ends up being in a 1A, 1B. That's best case scenario.
Yep. All right, my last one here. Is Colorado finally done screwing around with the lines? Can we relax for a minute?
Yeah, I think we can relax.
I mean, we saw Landeskog playing top power play, top line. Please stop. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't even own Colorado players, really. I have 0 shares. No, we combined have a share of McKinnon in the cupful. I have 0 shares of Landeskog, and I have 1 share of Rantanen, and it's still exhausting to me. and this is over 10 leagues.
I have a Landeskog Rantanen stack somewhere, so I'm glad to stop freaking out.
Yeah. I guess we can end 10 takes on a short one since we had a few long ones in there.
Yeah, why not? That's fine with me. Okay, so let's move into the weekend pickup suggestions and start with the schedule. So there's only one team with good matchups, and it's the worst team, Detroit. They play Buffalo and Ottawa. I mean, you can't ask for an easier schedule at the moment than that, I'd say. I don't know who else you're going to put
it's
in there.
easily the best.
Unless they could play themselves, which they do at practice every single day. It must be awful to watch that. Can you imagine being the coach?
There's probably goals at least.
God, probably. Teams with bad matchups, there's 2. So Arizona plays Carolina and Pittsburgh, 2 very tough matchups for them. The Devils have a very hard weekend up ahead of Washington and Tampa Bay. Tampa seems to have found their form as of late and really, really playing well. And obviously Washington is a force. And then teams that play both off days, so it's Friday and Sunday, are going to be Detroit, Arizona, and Pittsburgh. And with that, my first recommendation is the obvious one in Tyler Bertuzzi. Left wing, right wing, 48%. It's the second week in a row he's gotten recommended here. You can't fault a guy that's top line, top power play. Sometimes you just got to go with it, especially when they play both off nights and they have a good schedule.
There's somebody I like more on that team than Bertuzzi. That is,
I know exactly who it is. Yep.
Philip Hronek. Defense 26%. I have Fabry too.
I like Hronek.
Left wing, right wing, 8%. I don't like him more than Bertuzzi, but I do like Hronek more, depending on your league setup, of course. But the thing with Bertuzzi is if he's not getting points, he hasn't really been doing a whole lot. He's a points only type guy. I don't necessarily mean he's a points only league guy. I just mean you get him for points, where Hronek can kind of fill a lot of holes. He can get shots, hits, blocks, power play points and points. Probably not at the same velocity as Bertuzzi can, but at 26%, again, Hronik and Vatanen, I feel like, are the two defensemen that we're going to be babbling at you guys for the rest of the season until they both go over 50%. So, yeah, both of them are on my list. Fabry's only 8% owned too, so he seems like a pretty decent target for even fairly deep leagues.
Yeah, another top power play guy who's less owned than Tyler Bertuzzi. So if Bertuzzi's not around, I like Fabry if you need a forward.
Yep.
Another guy here for me is Jared McCann, center left wing, 23%. Top power play, not top line. He's on the second line and the top power play, but that second line's been doing work. So I actually like him on that second line at the moment, and of course, being top power play helps a lot.
Yep. And on the same vein, I mean, you should assume that this being the weekend preview that you're going to get recommendations from the 3 off-night teams. So a 2% owned player on Pittsburgh is Dominic Cahoon, left wing, right wing, 2%. He's on power play 2, which is a downside, but he is playing with Malkin and Rust, and he's been getting 19, 20 minutes a game. He has not really proven it, from a personal standpoint that he will stay there long term, but this is a 2-game ad. So at 2% in leagues where you can't find some of these other guys we're mentioning, he's worth a look. You might not be able to get the power play points from him because I don't see how Pittsburgh gets power play points outside of that top power play. But with his exposure to the red hot Malkin and Rust, you got to assume that an even strength point is, or 2 or 3 even, is pretty reasonable this weekend.
It's not so crazy to assume, right? I mean, Rust and Malkin are clicking so well that you got to assume that he can probably get it at one point. And like you said, if you're in a league that deep where a guy like 2% is worth it to you, I mean, why not gamble on a guy with 2 of the hottest players in the league at the moment?
And right? The minutes are great. 20 minutes for Cahoon. I was actually surprised to see he was getting those type of minutes on that line.
Yeah. I mean, they're playing Rust and Malkin so much at the moment. It's crazy.
Yeah.
My next one here is from the Arizona Coyotes. I know I haven't had him on sustainably low on Wednesday, but it's a good weekend to try him out again, and that's Christian Dvorak, center left wing, 21% owned. Just again, a deployment thing. You get 2 off nights. He's somewhat lowly owned, and I wouldn't be surprised if in some of even the deeper leagues, I wouldn't be surprised if people have moved off from him and have been using a streamer over him. I know I have, and he's available in pretty much all of my leagues, but he's a really good one this weekend.
Yep. Another one from the Coyotes is Jacob Chikrin. Defense 28%. He gets some power play time, but it seems like OEL has locked down that top power play unit. But he's been pretty consistently decent for a while now. He's one of these guys that is, since he's not power play 1, you can't really assume more than about 45-point pace from him. If he even lands somewhere in the 40 to 45 range, I'd be pretty happy with Chikrin rest of the season. I've held him for a lot longer than I expected to in my most competitive league, and that's because he's been kind of filling the scorecard with shots, hits, and blocks. So if you're in a blocks league, he has a little bit of a bump as well. And at 28%, he's fairly widely available considering the coverage that he adds to leagues like that.
Yep, agreed. And my last one here is from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that's Patrick Hornquist, right wing, 54% owned. He's probably not available in your league, but this is a guy to me that if even in a shallower league, he's one of my favorite options with how hot he's been and how much he's been shooting. And he's someone who could potentially become a long-term ad for sure, at least especially in the near long term. If you're thinking a week or two, I could definitely see Patrick Hornquist being worth keeping through that.
Yep, I don't got any more.
No, you're done. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we have prepped you for the weekend and you are ready to go. It must be great. You get to listen to us for 30 minutes or whatever it is, ramble on, set your lines, make your pickups, and you're good for the weekend.
I like to think that people listen to us, make their ads all in bed, and then fall asleep.
Yes.
I like to think that I put people to sleep.
Yeah.
Is that creepy? That might be creepy.
I don't know. Maybe it is. That's a great way to end the show, though. It's a great thought-provoking thing right there. Do you listen to us in bed? If you do,
send a
good
picture.
Night.
No, God. Don't.
Oh, God. Okay, that's the end of the show. Let Brandon go to sleep. Goodbye, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Fantasy Hockey Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. We put out videos all the time, and we just want to help you win. Speaking of videos, you might want to check out these cool ones right over here.